Greetings everybody around the world, wherever you may be. You're very welcome to this edition of Capricorn Radio. This is your host James Swagger, and for the next hour we'll be getting into some fascinating topics. But before I do, you can check out the links for the live shows at capricornradio.com. We also have a new members area there. You can check out the full MP3 archive at capricornmembers.com. I'm introducing a special lifetime membership fee for Capricorn members. This will entitle you to Capricorn radio shows and Capricorn TV interviews. To sign up for the members area, head over to capricornmembers.com, or equally follow the links on capricornradio.com. Got a special feature for Capricorn Radio today. We've got 4 continents hooked up and 6 people, I believe. So without further ado, let's get into our interesting show about the Gosford glyphs and other interesting features of the sites in Australia with Stephen and Evan Strong. I don't know if Evan's with us today, but we've definitely got Stephen on the line. Hi Stephen, are you with me?
I certainly am, and I'm hoping any minute now Evan will appear, but he is coming, believe me. It's a bit early in the morning for us, and the alarm didn't go off, but he will be there.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, it's 4 a.m. at you guys. We've got the UK hooked up today. We have Klaus as well, Klaus Donna in Vienna. We have Patricia Awyan in Egypt. We have Lars Scranton in Albany, New York. And everybody's been either in contact with you, myself as well, talking or helping. And some people have actually been to the site. So it's an interesting roundtable we're going to do today, Stephen. And I guess for those people not familiar with the site, Stephen, give us a little bit of background on the site, what's there, just for the new listeners.
Yeah, well, look, it's a very unusual site. It consists of 3 walls, 2 on one side, 1 on the other, that face each other. And on it, around about 300 engravings that some people refer to as hieroglyphs. We certainly do. That were chiseled into sandstone. They were found, it's hard to say, they were found quite some time ago, but they came to public notice in the 1980s. And there's been a lot of arguments ever since about their origin, their purpose, and more importantly, who did them. And what everyone's been looking at is the real potential that they are legitimate and they are ancient. And we're of the opinion there's absolutely no doubt the Egyptians were involved in some, if not all, it's really still debatable, of what took place. And it's now sort of spread throughout the world to an extent, obviously, with the people involved. And we're completely convinced, because we're working on behalf of the original people, some people refer to them as Aboriginal elsewhere, who've told us time after time they are legitimate. So we're coming from the point of view that the custodians of this land believe they're legitimate, and we're equally convinced they are. So that's in a nutshell what we're looking at. Mm-hmm. Today we might get a little bit further down the line to find out what they actually mean.
Sure. Yeah, Steve, I've got several people on the line, as you know, and, each person's brought in for their own expertise. Patricia and Yusuf Awyan have been looking at the glyphs. I'm going to talk to Patricia in a minute. We've had Klaus Donna, of course, been working closely with you from day one. And
Klaus, right from the beginning he has,
Yeah, Klaus is a great guy. I'm going to speak to Klaus in a minute too. Of course, Laird's also been working with the glyphs and their association there as well. And, I love Laird's work as well. Going to speak to Laird in a minute as well. Everybody's waiting patiently on the line. So, I think,
we do appreciate that,
and I know we've got several time zones hooked up today, so we'll get to it. But what's new? I know you've had Graham Hancock there recently. It seems to be getting a lot more awareness now, a lot more press and a lot more interest. Obviously from all of us on the roundtable today as well, who are all, willing to give our opinion and interest as well.
Yeah, it's really good that's happening. You see, the problem we've had is as soon as this was found, the machinery broke into, it came to action straight away, and the job of the mainstream machinery was to debunk the place. And what's really interesting is, according to the National Parks and Wildlife, which is a government body that basically does its best to deny, they claim they found it in 1983, but as you'll find in one of the videos, we spoke to the original site officer at the time, He was taken there in 1978 under a cloak and dagger sort of secrecy, sworn not to tell anyone what he found. And he's one of the people who's adamant, absolutely adamant, that the glyphs are legitimate. So what we've had to contest against is a series of hoax theories. But what they all share, Klaus, is one fascinating concept. None of them have a name. We've had what's called a deranged, this is not my quote, this is what's come from the officials, a deranged Czech. Yugoslav that was wandering around with a chisel that did it. We've got Sydney Uni students in either 1964 or 1984 who's supposed to have done it. That's a popular one. But what's interesting about that is Sydney Uni was never teaching Egyptology or hieroglyphs in either of those times in their campus. We also have the standard one, which is the hippies and New Agers who did it. And then we've got a grieving World War I veteran who did it as a monument to his the fallen and departed. But in every case, there's no name. Now, we've actually met, and we've written an article about a lady called Nell, who in 1958 saw it. More importantly, if I can just give you some proper background, Arnie Bev, I can't say her last name, she just passed away. She told us, not that long ago, that the original women used to go up there each year for millennium and coat it in women's urine to keep it clean. And we also know that there was a roof on the top, and Graham agrees with that. He's seen the site, and it was quite obvious to him there was a roof that was collapsed, and it collapsed in probably late 50s, early 60s. And all of the original people we've spoken to, they know about this place. It's in their mythology. It's part of their life and part of their history. So it's been denied and taken away from the original people. And that's a common story in this country. I do that everywhere. As soon as something important in this country is found that belongs to the original people or pre-cooked, the government just denies straight up and says, no, it's a fake. But I can assure the listeners and all of the people involved that have been there, and of course Patricia and Graham have been there, and Klaus has been working there for a long time, and Laird's got some amazing stuff too. This is a legitimate site.
Sure.
Forget what the government says. It is legitimate. The original people stand as one on that.
Sure. Okay, so Stephen, I've got 3 guests on the line, and I'm going to just introduce them one at a time so the audience can get familiar with their voice, and maybe then we'll get back into some analysis. So I'll just bring Patricia in to say hi for us. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, James.
Wow, nice to speak to you again, Patricia.
Wonderful to speak to you again.
Well, we had met in Egypt, Patricia, and you told me that you actually had been there to the Gosford glyphs, and I wasn't aware of that. It was a surprise for me, and so tell us how you came to go there, Patricia.
Well, it's funny. We had just returned when Beatrice and I had gone. My sister-in-law, when you came to the house here in March. We just were on a lecture tour to New Zealand and Australia and had spoken to Evan and Stephen, via email that we were coming. And so we're invited to go to the site, and we're just thrilled to be able to see something we had heard so much about. And until I had actually been there, I kind of questioned their authenticity, but after seeing them with my own eyes, I was really blown away by it's hard to explain, but they immediately feel the impact is that they are authentic. And then, of course, through the study of my husband and our friend, who is a hieroglyphics expert and teacher, we've made some really profound discoveries within the text of writing where we all are of a consensus that it's, absolutely authentic.
Wow. I just want to bring everybody in one at a time. We're going to get into some of that analysis, Patricia. Let me bring in Lars Scranton next. Hi, Lars. Welcome.
Hi, James. How are you?
Oh, great to have you back on the show, Laird. I love your work. You know I do. A big fan of your research. Tell us how you got involved, Laird. I know you're an expert as far as I'm concerned in glyphs. You're not a trained Egyptologist. You're a computer analyst. So maybe tell us a bit about your hieroglyphic story and what your analysis has brought to the table, how you got involved in a way, Laird.
Okay, I was invited to be involved by Stephen and Evan and by Bob Newton, and made aware of the glyphs that were here at Gosford. My background is comparative cosmology. I compare symbols and creation traditions of various cultures. And so I was willing to take a look at the symbols because there were some resemblances between what's there and what I'm familiar with in Africa and Egypt and other places. So my involvement has sort of been peripheral, but I've been able to confirm that some of the unusual characteristics of the glyphs at the site could be legitimate from an Egyptological standpoint, that it's not a showstopper that certain glyphs are reversed in direction. Some of the glyphs tie back to early Bambara glyphs, that's the name of a tribe in Africa. Some tie back to Tibet. And that's mostly been the extent of my involvement.
Wow. What's your initial impression, Lars? Firstly, when you got invited, what was the first impression and what's your impression now?
My initial impression was that they might or they might not be legitimate. There are aspects of this that I recognize, and there are other aspects that are unfamiliar, but that I've been trying to research. I'm looking for validation from a geological standpoint that the etchings themselves look to be as old as the symbols make it appear they could be. I've also been looking for any combination of symbols on the walls that I can point to as being reflecting legitimate archaic knowledge. And I think I've actually come up with at least one set that does that. Wow.
Okay, let me bring in Klaus next. Klaus is the main guy here for the alternative research. Klaus doesn't need much of an introduction, but welcome back to Capricorn Radio, Klaus.
Great talking to you again, James. Hello.
Klaus, obviously, you've been here from day one with the guys, Stephen and Evan Strong in Australia. Tell us how you got involved with the scenario down there.
Bob Newton, a good friend of mine and a very serious researcher. I was long time already in contact with him, and he knew about our work of new technology where we can scan over certain areas, archaeological sites. And he contacted me, and he made the contact with Stephen and Evan, and that was the beginning of our cooperation.
Wow. Klaus, there's many things at the site as well. It's not just the glyphs that we're talking about here, what we're focusing on at the moment. Obviously, I have two guests on the line, Patricia and Laird, that have worked with glyphs, but there's a star map there, there's a tunnel, there's all sorts of strange features here, Klaus.
Yes, what we could show, Stephen and Evan, is the guarantee that there is a tunnel going directly from far behind of the glyphs to the direction of the glyphs, and there is also a room underground, and in the room we could detect precious metal and also bones. That means that there is definitely a grave.
Wow, that puts a whole different perspective on it, Klaus, doesn't it?
I think so. It would be the final approval that these glyphs are original and not some hoax.
Yeah, for sure. I guess coming back to Stephen, it must be great to have such a wealth of people involved, Stephen.
Without a doubt, because the way we've done this from the very beginnings, we work as a collective and as a group. No one stands out above anyone else, but the people you just mentioned have been an integral part of this. And look, I know that Claire at one stage said that he's a peripheral player, but I'm going to say he's not, because the stuff he's given us has been amazing. But just as important, when we first got involved in this, and by the way, Evan's just appeared. Hi.
Hey, Evan.
I'm going to make the point. Klaus has made a major point, is that if you just looked at the glyphs on their own, okay, we can sit and argue about maybe or maybe not someone really clever did this. It's the peripheral evidence, as Klaus put up there, the other stuff around there that really makes an interesting story. But there's been a few. I mean, Klaus underestimates what he's done. He's sent us to quite a few sites in that area that are just utterly amazing. And let me share something with you. The shaft that Klaus speaks about, which we've got pictures of, and you can look on our website, which is quite amazing. It's fascinating. National Parks and Wildlife didn't insult people by saying that was natural, because that just wouldn't have worked. We've been underneath there, And I can share something with you that we've been there a few times, and National Parks and Wildlife filled it up with 5 ton of rock on one occasion and made it so no one could get in there once it was photographed once. And the day before we got there, apparently the days before, I don't know how, but somehow or other, people took all the rocks out the day before we bought a film, so we could film it. And recently, one of our advisors, who was a head professor, and I won't say at which university because he doesn't want his name associated with us, he finally got an answer from National Parks and Wildlife as to what their statement was about the tunnel. Now, it's okay to say that a deranged Yugoslav with a chisel did the glyphs, which is impossible, but we'll leave that aside. They've finally given an official verdict. Now, this tunnel goes for about 12 metres, maybe a bit further, and as Klaus said, there's other parts of it too, and we think there's a lot more. But the National Parks and Wildlife claims that this was done by vandals. Right? And I'd love to have some vandals that work that well around our place. There's a few jobs we'd like to get them to do here too. It's such an appalling, actually, excuse. When we've shown pictures of it in talks and told people that, they always break into laughter. It's so ridiculous and so arrogant to claim it was done by vandals, but they've got nothing else. So yeah, it's very important that when we talk about the glyphs, which can also be called, as Laird knows, the Bambara glyphs, which is fascinating because, as Laird will tell you, the Bambara are the tribe that are actually next to the Dogon. And there's only 2 entries in Wikipedia. Bambara being the tribe of the Dogon and also the place where the glyphs are. A coincidence, perhaps.
Sure.
But there's a massive coincidences all around this site. That shaft, we believe, was actually the place where one of the brothers was interred. And about 5 years ago, wasn't it, Evan? Yeah. Minnie Mace, who went on site way back in the 1990s with Ray Johnson, gave us 2 artefacts which we still have. One's a bone, and we know it's a bone because we've taken a local base hospital. It's been CAT scanned, and they've told us it's the same density as a human bone. They've told us it's old and it could be a femur. And also a piece of jewellery which had a complete circular clasp. And we've put that up on the website too. It's a combination of things that make this story more compelling. And we found that when we're attacked, people always refer to the glyphs, and they will not engage us in the fact that there's other things around there. And by the way, there are not just one set of glyphs. We've found another set a long distance away. So our so-called faker has been to many places. And what's really interesting is the other set of glyphs, there's about 15 of them. It's a completely different hand, isn't it, Evan?
Oh, definitely.
It's 1/3 the size, it's not a sharpened incision, and it's much shallower. So I think, as Klaus has rightly pointed out, his work has been amazingly important, not so much with the 2 walls, or the 3 walls, but all the other stuff we've found. And when you put this all together, it makes a complete picture. And as Klaus knows, we're of the opinion that where the Bambara glyphs are, it's part of a complex, and it goes for a long way. And we've found, look, we've got a long way to go. We've up to about 5 of the places Klaus has sent us to. I think we've got about another 40 to go. So it's the tip of the iceberg, ladies and gentlemen. I can assure you, when you put all of this story together, it's not fake. I mean, someone's that good. They've done so many different things, and they've done them in a very remote part of the country. Now, if you're a faker, and you don't tag it, and you go in the middle of nowhere, and it's a very hard place to find. It really is. It's tough. People go up there all the time saying, I'm going to find it. They spend hours walking through the bush, and they can't even find the entrance.
Wow.
So put it all together.
Wow.
The glyphs are legitimate simply because they've got so many friends and so many compasses all sitting around them as one.
Wow, I like the way you speak, Stephen, and you synthesize all the information nicely there, Stephen, which is important. Welcome to the show, Evan.
Yep. Sorry about that. I got here.
Yeah, you're fine. You have a good excuse. It's 4 a.m. in Australia, but nice to have you here. Just want to say, for anybody who wants to see the YouTube channel, it's Forgotten Origin, DOTCOM on YouTube. Just Google our YouTube, search Forgotten Origins. I think you guys have the artifacts you're talking about, Stephen, in the YouTube channel somewhere.
I think we do. I mean, yeah, we've got them in there, and what we try and do is when we find new information, we put it up straight away. We don't want to hide it, and we want to break through this appalling story. I mean, what really is insulting, and everyone's got to remember this, we've got all these other non-Aboriginal people who are claiming to be part of this, but during the whole of this story, not one government official or anyone from the media has had the decency and the common sense to consult with the original people. Look, we spoke to so many different people around the country, and we've been around the country. They all know of the place, and not one elder will say anything other than, oh, no, the Egyptians were there. And as Patricia knows, she knows full well they were there. So it's very important when this discussion takes place that everyone remembers we should be asking the original historians, the ones who were here when the Egyptians came and others, we should be asking them first, not at all. And that's the one thing we've been very rigorous about asking. And I can actually tell you, just before we go to someone else, that we spoke to another elder who told us the Egyptians were in this country from the time those glyphs began until 400 years ago. Now that's a period over 4,000 years. Now they've all told us that, all over the country. They know they were there. Not one elder's disagreed with us. In fact, I can even tell you what happened and how they left. And this is according to a very respected elder, Warren Garrett. What took place was 400 years ago, they used to come here, and sometimes they go inland, and they were escorted inland because they were welcome. But unfortunately, 4 priests, probably not following the old way, stole some sacred stones. And the Pitjantjatjara Jara tracked them all the way back to Sydney, to a beach called Balmoral, that's how specific they are, and speared them in front of the people on the boat. And they told the people on the boat, the Egyptian people on the boat, you've broken our law, don't come back. And they never did. Unfortunately, a couple of hundred years later, the British broke many more laws. They asked them to leave and they wouldn't. And they were the first ones who wouldn't go. And we're the results of that to this day. We're still here. But we're trying to learn, some of us. Some of the others are trying to deny.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I'll bring Patricia in next as you alleviated to Patricia again. Hi, Patricia.
Hi, James.
Yeah, you have done some of the analysis with Yusuf. I know Yusuf did most of the work, your husband. Great guy. I've met Yusuf. Tell us about some of the analysis of what you can, Patricia.
Yes, Yusuf, who has a deep understanding of the glyphs, it's a different sort of understanding from his father, as well as many years of study, self-study. And, as I said, our friend Mohammed Ibrahim have put their heads together and done a lot of research. And from what they've discovered, there's absolutely no way, in our opinion, that fakers or vandals could have created these glyphs. Simply because we've discovered at least 99.9% of the hieroglyphs are true, actual, authentic letters. And then they've formed many full words with up to 6 letters in each word. And the words are, they're almost all referring to funerary texts. Now, yes, some are written the wrong direction and right to back or back to right, but we see this happening in Egypt, in other texts in Egypt, and that are still cited as being authentic. So that isn't absolutely extraordinary. But what we do see is that many of the glyphs are unbelievably rare and unique. And both Muhammad and Yusuf had to search through several different hieroglyphics text lists, like Gardner's list, to find these unique glyphs. So if someone were to copy them, they would have had to, be fluent in hieroglyphics. And they see that this scribe did understand the language on a local level. So we're not looking at like the temple language, but we're looking at a local understanding. And as I said, it can get very complicated, but yes, absolutely. They're seeing this beyond a shadow of a doubt to be authentic. And another thing, real quickly, I would like to say, whoever had done this, really did understand. And, if somebody were faking it or making a copy, they would have copied directly from text that they were familiar with, unless they were an expert. And they would have had to be very tricky with how they put it together and taken things from many different areas and understand how to formulate words. So again, we would say absolutely, not a fake.
Wow, thank you, Patricia. I was just going to bring in Hugh. Hugh Newman has joined us, all being well. Hi, Hugh.
Hi there. How you doing, Jane?
Wow. Are we speaking live from Turkey? Are you at Göbekli Tepe?
Yeah, currently in Sanliurfa. We're going to Göbekli Tepe first thing tomorrow morning.
Wow. How's the tour going?
Very well, thanks. Yeah, all good. Good weather, amazing sights, and the sort of peak of it is obviously tomorrow. This is in the enigmatic Göbekli Tepe, so we're all very much looking forward to that, of course.
Wow, beautiful. Say hello to Andrew for me. Great show I did with Andrew on Göbekli Tepe. What an interesting site. Fascinating. Thanks for taking the time out today as well to you to join us. I know it's difficult for you. I'm glad you made it anyway. You've been to Australia, Hugh. I wanted to know what you think of these glyphs and the site in general.
Well, the hieroglyphs, the Gosford hieroglyphs, kind of, the very last day of my trip there back in January, February, and obviously I was with Steve and Evan for quite a long period of time while I was down there exploring, looking around some sites. And we didn't manage to go with Steve and Evan, but I went down there with Sheena, and we couldn't find them. We found roughly where they were. They're obviously, I'm sure you've mentioned this already, they're obviously not signposted.
Mm-hmm.
They're not an official site in any way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite hard to find, but we kind of gave up, and then we bumped into something, and then this dog came running around the corner. It was kind of strange, and then this woman followed the dog, and it was almost like the dog saved us. She said, look, not the dog, the woman, and said, we'll take you to the glyphs. I had a chat with them, took us right to where they were, and we walked by them 4 or 5 times looking for them without even knowing.
Wow.
Because of the little entrance. It's tiny, as everyone here will know, it's a tiny little entrance. And you could walk by it 100 times and not even have a clue. And then, you look around the site a little bit, we were looking around and we were seeing strange kind of almost Egyptian and other kind of simulacra, kind of faces in the rocks.
Mm.
And little markings and little things sort of pointing you in the rough direction, almost like it was part of a kind of sort of special kind of
complex
game set out by the ancients, so we had to kind of work out how to find it. So it's quite a mystical place, I must admit. I was quite skeptical when I went there, but after going there, having a good look and feeling the energy, my God, there is something about that place. It was a very well-chosen site. The energies are very intense, very strong. And I think there's more to it than, people, might realize.
Wow. Yeah, I'm glad you told me, again, another person I actually heard on the grapevine that you had been there. It seems to be a lot of people are drawn to this place because we're not getting the true answers. We're being fed a story, and like you say, skeptical or not, people still want to go to find out, and they still want to search for the answers themselves.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, anything that's kind of, as everyone on the show will probably agree, anything that's kind of covered up or, brushed under the carpet or hidden or anything, but people have more of an interest in it because, well, there must be something going on there. And to dismiss them as hoaxes from, a few, 50, 40 years ago or whatever, is a bit of a joke, really, because if you actually go and look at them, I mean, as everyone has, on the show, then you can, quite clearly see that some of them look really old. There's lichen on them, there's patina, there's all this sort of, and it's right inside grooves of each of the hieroglyphs and the markings and so forth. There are a few there. I don't know if this has been mentioned already, but there are a few there that do look a bit more modern. I think some have been added. I think that was what probably caused them to, announce it as a hoax, because some of the ones look a bit, messy. They look a bit new. There's not as much patina or lichen on them, and you can kind of see that when you go and take a look. But I think that's what's caused maybe part of the controversy for the more official stance on it.
For sure. Let me bring in Laird next. Laird, looking at the lexicon of on what you've been studying, can you give a time frame? Do you see anything of when these glyphs might be dated to?
If they're legitimate, I would expect them to be very early because there are archaic references that I consider to be correct cosmological references that were archaic at the time of writing the Budge documents in Egypt. The references, by the time we get to modernized Egyptian words, it seems as if some of the references have been forgotten, except in very old names in words that are formulated in very old ways. And so the fact that I can find a correct cosmological statement within the glyphs on one of the walls leads me to believe that someone knew what they were talking about, that the formulation has to have been pretty early on. I would also agree with the fact that we have relationship to other early glyphs in Tibet and in Africa.
Wow. Of course, this is similar to what Patricia's saying, and you're kind of putting your own annotation on it from your own research and your own background.
Yes. For example, as part of this cosmological statement, there's an equivalence being set up between a deity who is well known in Egypt and a deity who is very poorly understood in Egypt. And that relationship, I understand, was the correct relationship in archaic times.
Wow, fascinating. You had to put money on it, Laird. What do you say for the integrity of these glyphs?
I can't say absolutely right now, but the cosmology makes it look to me like someone knew what they were talking about when they wrote the glyphs. So
the mind that did this was intellectually understanding of the context and the content.
They understood a correct cosmological relationship that I could point to, and that's an indication to me that the person who wrote it knew what they were talking about.
Wow. Got to bring in Klaus again at this point. Klaus, talk to me about the other features at the site as well. Do we have any new techniques that we can employ? Is the fact that there's the remains of a body buried here, is that going to suppress any research? Is all obviously digging's going to be a problem if there's a body found there?
Yeah, that's up to Stephen and Evan. If they get the allowance, they might be able to open this grave.
What about the lichen, Klaus? Could we get like a geologist in to study the glyphs or the star map or anything else in the region to say, the antiquity of this site?
Could be possible, but in this case, I'm not the expert. We find the places, but then it's the duty of experts on the spot.
What could people do, Klaus, to get some press up on this? Is it time to get some press and awareness on this?
I have no idea. I cannot answer this because, as I said, I'm not an expert on hieroglyphs.
Have you looked into the star map, Klaus? Have you seen the images of the star map?
Yes, of course I have seen them.
What do you think about the star map? Closely related or?
Closely related, and as Stephen mentioned before, we gave them some other spots, and I think they find some more very important places.
Of course,
we did only check the area around these hieroglyphs.
There may actually be other places not previously known yet, even.
Oh yeah, I'm quite sure.
Do you want to jump in, Stephen, at this point?
Well, exactly what Klaus said. He is right. There are other places, and some of them are just as amazing. Look, honestly, Klaus gives us points, and we go to those points, and sometimes, I hate to say this, Klaus, you give us the worst places on the countryside to go to that nobody would ever go to, and it's so difficult. But when you get there, you find something. And when you do this, we've done this 4 or 5 times with Klaus's map. It's an effort to get there, but when you get there, you know you're going to get a result. It's not always what we expect, but we always get something. And I keep thinking it never stops. And look, very important, you were just mentioning the fact that it's time for press. I can tell you that we actually, about a year and a half ago, it was December 2012, the prophetic in one respect, we decided to try and involve mainstream press, didn't we, Evan?
Oh yeah, we gave them a good go to get involved.
We actually went and saw the ABC, the national broadcaster, a bit like the BBC in England. And we grabbed a young journalist. We didn't want to get an old one because we thought, well, there's no chance of them. They've all been turned off. And to take it out on site. But what we decided to do is we didn't feature the glyphs at all. We featured all the stuff around. Well, she was so taken by that, she went back to the studio and she put together a 1:40 coverage of it. And mid-December 2012, we got phone calls from all over the country saying it's on the national news. And we turned it on. Lo and behold, second item, 1:40, and very pro-us, more than I'd ever expected. And we were quite excited. We thought, my God, mainstream are listening. It is going to get into the press. Then they posted an article up on the website, and it was even more pro-us than the other thing was. So we thought, well, finally, it looks like mainstream are listening. And ladies and gentlemen, they were, because within the next hour, that news bulletin was taken off all over the country. And then the website was taken down, which we captured. I've got to tell that mob, they didn't get away with it. And then they put up another website, another article, just about the glyphs, that they were fake. But we never mentioned the glyphs and we never put it in the article. So we did try. We did try to break through mainstream, but they're very tricky and it didn't take them long. And all we know for sure is, and Evan's checked with friends he's got in the ABC, is what took place there has never happened before. Never been that quick. And they could not explain why.
Because usually you need a bit of time for whatever happened, the process of people to go, oh, I don't like this. And there's no time for that. It just happened.
And again, one of our friends, another academic, very highly qualified, kept pestering the ABC month after month, wanting to know why it was taken down. They finally gave an answer. And the answer was this, and this is the official response. We don't have to give a reason why we took it down. We just did. So we've tried, and I've got a letter with a government letterhead stamped on it about a different site, the Standing Stone site that Hugh went to. And I've been told, I've been threatened with a $500,000 fine. I've had phone calls from a person called the Investigator trying to trick us up, and he rang by saying, we found nothing wrong with what you did, but we're going to keep looking. So we have a problem in Australia. As you just realised, James, we can't go through Skype because our Skype gets jammed all the time. Our problem's very simple, but they don't want this out. They really don't. I mean, everyone here has said that there's some stuff there that's quite sophisticated. Well, here's the interesting part. The people who are supposed to have done this are all supposed to be either first-year students that come straight out of high school, or people that are idiots, or people that are not connected with anything to do with ancient script. None of the people involved are supposed to have a decent ancient script, but they're the people who are claimed to have done this. So, yeah, we have a lot of problems getting into mainstream. We kept trying and we'll keep trying. But I've got to tell you, in Australia, whoever does this, they're pretty damn good. We've got to be very fast because they're tracking us all the time. And they don't want this out because it does rewrite our history, and to an extent, as Patricia would agree, it rewrites Egyptian history. And makes, as we know, the Egyptians were everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
So, they don't want this out because they prefer to have their way of controlling history and their way of controlling everything. So it's an endemic story. So, yeah, we keep trying. We keep bringing up different press, and we're trying again. Even the local press. I remember got a response a couple of days ago where they said, well, if it was true, this came from the editor, I would have read about it. I was thinking, good luck with that. So, yeah, look, we have no doubt. The more they deny and the more they interfere, and the more the original people keep telling us, of course, the Dan Burridges are legitimate, the more we keep pushing.
Klaus, did you want to ask Stephen a question there?
No, not at the moment. I just would like to tell Stephen that soon he gets some other places.
I'm looking forward to that, Klaus. We did mention before that was coming, and I've told the whole group, and we've got a little bit more funding that's just come through, and we've put it aside, and as soon as it comes, I'll be calling the group together again. And as I said before, and I can assure everyone there, whatever's on that map that Klaus gives us, wherever we go, and Klaus, I know it's going to be somewhere tricky again, we know we're going to get a result. People have got to understand, as we said before, the glyphs themselves are really a fascinating spot. And as you said earlier, so difficult to find. If you're going to spend so much time on something, and yes, I do agree, there's no doubt there have been some additions done. We've got no problem with that. We've said it every time. But this is such a tough place to find. As you said, if you wandered around and around to find it, well, if you're going to go to that much trouble to make a monument of that proportions, don't put it in a place where no one can find it, because a vandal or graffiti artist only gets joy when other people admire their work. Don't put it where no one can find it. That's very difficult to do. Put it out in the open. No, in this case, it's hidden and so difficult to reach simply because it was the perfect place. And I can tell you something else too, very important. Before you go to the glyphs, you must go to an original site that's just as sacred. Don't we? Every time.
I definitely do.
It's called the grandmother tree. It's a tree that's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of years old, and I'm sure it's not the first one that's been there. When you stand between the two walls and you look back and you look at the vision that creates, you look directly at the grandmother tree. Now, the chances of that being a coincidence, well, they're there, but it's low. But as you also know, James, and you've been working with us on this one, that directly above the glyphs is a star map.
Yeah.
And it was dated. Now, we're not sure how, because we've only just got the stuff back from Sydney Uni. And it was dated to be over 4,600 years old. And this is the closest star map to the glyphs. It's only 30, 40 metres away. What's fascinating is the story of Nefertjev and Nefertaru. They're supposed to have got there around 4,600 years ago. So, by God, I've got to tell you, this photo is so devious and clever. Not only does he have amazing skills in ancient script, he also knows what the nighttime sky was around the same time and managed to put it directly above, and didn't do it with a chisel. This was done with rock technology.
Yep.
And one of those star markers takes around about 800 to 900 percussion points. So this is a faith, if it is a faith, the greatest faith in the country, in the world perhaps, and should be acknowledged as such, but it isn't. Too many coincidences. As I said with Klaus, yes, I know the new one's coming and we are looking forward to it. But once again, I can guarantee everyone here, there'll be something there. So it's beyond the potential or possibility. It's ludicrous to assume that it is a faith. As Patricia said, she sees combinations, and she told us about one of those combinations of letters that nobody should know about. Certainly not the hippies and the deranged Yugoslav and some first-year students that weren't even studying Egyptology at Sydney Uni because it wasn't being presented on the dates they gave. Every one of their faith stories, and notice how they put a few up, so you can deny one but not another. We've denied them all. And yeah, one or two there, we think, and we've said this too, we particularly believe that Nubis was added on, don't we? Yeah. It doesn't.
It's quite separate too.
And it's a different make, and we're in agreement with that. And of course, that's beautiful for the naysayers to grab onto those couple. But you made a very important point, and this is one you can't deny. I'm glad you said this, Hugh. There's an energy there. When you get to that site, you feel it. It reeks of it. In fact, we know for an absolute fact, and we've seen this happen, haven't we, earlier? There's a rule there. The grandmother tree is a women's site, and there's another women's site elsewhere, and women can go between the glyphs. But can I make one point, if you do go, don't stay in those glyphs for a long period of time on your own if you're a woman. You will get sick. And I know Patricia knows about that one too, because I think Beatrice was involved in that happening for a second when she was left alone.
Wow.
So don't tell me there isn't an energy there. We've actually got a film which we've shown many people of what looks like a white snake coming out of the glyphs, and it was taken by a person who was just filming the glyphs. There is a distinct and powerful energy in that place, and above. There's another place that shows energy for women. So there's so many different layers to this story that the glyphs are an important part of it, but there's other parts of the story that are just as fascinating. And Klaus has been leading us in that direction very ably.
Sure. Hugh, do you want to comment on the energy? I know myself and yourself, you in the British Isles, we're riddled with sites here, and you can go to ancient megalithic sites in Ireland, Britain, Scotland, Wales, Brittany, you literally sense the energy there. They had certain types of stone that they used. You literally go and you touch the rocks, you can feel the energy coming out of them.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what surprised me the most is, it's just like somehow, I don't know, I think they chose that site very carefully. It's just my intuition here to sort of, trying to work out why this site was chosen. It just seems like, there was something about that particular spot, I think, with the trees, and I think the simulacra, I think the small markings, there's a small circular marking on the sort of bedrock, sort of leading to it. And I think these are all sort of pointing to this sort of ancient sacred place, which, perhaps, I don't know if everyone, Stephen talked about this already, but that this was an original site, and that they were, working with, the Egyptians when they turned up. And it was already revered and sanctified before anything was ever put there. And so it was almost like a chosen canvas, a rock canvas to work on, which was then, revered and developed and worked with, over many hundreds, if not thousands of years. So, yes, very, very strange place, because I was, I looked at all the glyphs before I went there. I spoke with Steve, I spoke with Evan. I had a good look into it, and I wasn't 100% sure. I don't think anybody is, even to this day, but I think that's what makes it so compelling. But once you go there, not only are the glyphs much bigger than you think they're going to be, they're quite large, which is, kind of how they do in Egypt, obviously. But, it's just the sort of chosen site, the sort of, was very, it's very interesting. But I think it's something to do with the rock formations, something to do with the natural telluric currents in that area. We also went there at dusk as well, which I think kind of enhanced it slightly.
Wow.
And then the next morning as well. But, and I was absolutely and I feel like it's got sort of been semi-untouched, which gives it, and the fact that it is hidden does keep it kind of, it almost keeps it sanctified. You have to know how to get there, or you have to trust synchronicities, and you have to trust the universe to help you find it. Because even with clear directions of like 3 different websites, various other places, still couldn't find it. And then there's this dog, it's almost like this dog guardian came running around the path. I thought, that's strange. And we were just leaving, we were giving up basically. Yeah. And then this woman came around and just said, "Oh, you're looking for the glyphs?" I said, "Yes." Of course I am. And she took me there. So it's almost like, you have to really want to go and see them to find them. But I do recommend it. If anyone who's listening is in the area or visiting Sydney and wants to drive an hour north, then it's well worth a visit. It's very, very important, very sacred place.
Yeah, I was just talking to Klaus, Hugh, before the show, and I'm pretty sure there's a solstice alignment on the gallery where these glyphs are. I have a compass reading from a drawing as well, and if it's the magnetic reading, it looks like there's a solstice there. So that could probably be viewed at some point as well, which is incredibly important too.
I'll be interested in I didn't have much time there, but I'll be interested in see what light phenomena happens there at certain times of year, like the solstice, for instance. Yeah. If certain glyphs get lit up, if light comes through in a certain way. I know, obviously, you've got trees that may have been planted later there. I don't know. So there may be something going on with that, much like obviously you get in Ireland with the chambers and things like this and the long barrows. So if there's something like that would kind of fascinate me if something turned up in that department.
Okay, we're coming up to the end of the show, guys. I guess we'll start with you. Throw us out your website just before we wrap things up, so people can kind of see what you're at and why you're in Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm an obsessive megalithomaniac. Have to see as many megalithic ancient sites as I possibly can. Caught the bug a few years ago. And everyone on this show, I'm sure, is also a hardened megalithomaniac. Can't help but explore. People can check out what we're doing on megalithomania.co.uk. We run various tours and conferences and things, and it'd be great if people want to get in touch and explore with us.
Sure. I'll see you for a Capricorn TV interview when you're back in London or Glastonbury with Andrew as well, all being well. So safe journey, you. Wish you the best with the trip, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens when you get back.
All right, thanks a lot, James, and best wishes to all you guys there too.
Take care, brother. Laird, do you want to just give us out your site? I know you don't run your own site. I think it's lairscranton.com. Is that correct?
That's true. There is a LairdsScranton.com that is not actually my site, but you can make contact with me through their contact link, and it does have information about my books. Another way to find my books is through InnerTraditions.com.
Yeah.
People who are interested in participating a little more, there are conferences I'll be speaking at this year. The Paradigm Symposium in Minneapolis the first week in October, and the CPAC, the Walter Crettenden's Conference on Procession and Ancient Knowledge.
Oh, yes.
Which will be happening in California in Rancho Mirage the third week in October.
Wow. I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm going to have to get in touch with Walter. I know he does the conference every 2 years now, so that's going to be interesting to see that conference again this year. So best of luck with the conferences, Laird. Pleasure talking to you, and I'm going to speak to you in August when your next book is out.
Great, thank you.
Okay, now. Patricia, just give us out your website for the chematology tours that you do. I've personally been on there for some of the tour, and highly recommend it.
Thanks, James. It's chematology.com, Chemitology. You can find us, our Facebook group on, we have a great Facebook group, and come and see us in Egypt.
Wow. I'll talk to you in the not too distant future, Patricia.
Great. Thanks, James.
Klaus, give us out your website before we wrap things up, or any final thoughts?
Yes, my website has to be done new, but I don't have time. I prefer to be on the fields or work with Stephen and Evan and other researchers. But my website is www.unsolved-mysteries.com.
Wow.
Info, I-N-F-O.
Wow. Well, look, I thank you. I know you've been the driving force for all of this, and I know you've been pioneering a lot of stuff with Stephen and Evan, so I thank you for your input as well. I love what you do, Klaus. You know that anyway, and I hopefully see you, obviously, sometime in July, maybe. But
I hope to see you, and then I can show you a lot of things.
Yeah, well, we're going to do a Capricorn TV interview, so all being well, Klaus, I look forward to that.
Thanks a lot, and greetings to all your listeners.
For sure. Stephen, going to wrap things up, I guess. Give us out your website, obviously, and any final thoughts as well, Stephen.
Well, it's ForgottenOrigin.com. I'm the latter in the group. Look, just in closing, I want to make the point that the people you've spoken to have been an integral part of this. We work as a collective. We don't work as individuals, and what they've done has given us more perspectives and given the wisdom that we don't have in certain areas. We try and do this in a different way. We pull in all the different people around the world that have something to add to this story. And in closing, I can say this, we have absolutely no doubt that the Egyptians were in Australia, and we have no doubt a lot of other people in this country. And what's fascinating is the real question is, why? Why did they come to this place where the men and women wore no clothes, there's no buildings, no medals? What were they coming for? And the answer, and Hugh's actually been to another site, the Standing Stone site. And what's interesting is the narrative between the two walls. We believe the same narrative is there. And we suspect the reason they came was for intellectual and spiritual wisdom and guidance. Not to know how to make machines or make pyramids. They're not going to learn that here. They came here a bit like a sabbatical, a bit like a pilgrimage, to replenish their soul and get a real idea of why we're on this planet. And I think we've looked at all the other civilizations, and they all offer something to the equation. But this part of the equation is something completely different from elsewhere. There was no money in this place. They came here. I mean, the Egyptians sailed a long, long way. We believe they came through the Roaring Forties, and some of them died on the way. And there's stories of sons of pharaohs coming here. Why? Why go through the trouble and risk when you're not going to bring back any wealth? You're not going to load your boat up, but you do load your soul up. And that's part of the story that really does need to get out, why they came. And we believe we're only 1/50th of the way through. We've spent some time with an elder again. Yeah. We spoke more about this story. But it is an amazing story, ladies and gentlemen, and forget what the government says and forget these stories about these unnamed, unsophisticated hoaxes. Something much grander and much more interesting is taking place in this country. And our government doesn't want anyone to know about it, but we're not going to stop. So thank you very much for asking us. And yeah, look, I want to thank all the people who came along and were part of this, because they've all added something to this story. But we've got a long way to go. And as you know, James, we've got some amazing astronomy.
Yeah.
Because I do want to say one thing. Every elder we've spoken to made it very clear that everything we see there, everything, all over the country, has a relationship above. Every elder we've spoken to is always closed with the same saying, and Graham made note of it too. As on top, so below.
Sure.
So when you look at those glyphs, don't forget one thing, look up into the nighttime sky, because everything in that country relates above as it does below.
Sure. Exactly. What did Graham think of Curiosity? Did he get a chance to look at the Orion constellation?
Yeah, look, he's still working on that, and by the way, he's going to contact you. We made comment of the fact you were working on that. He said, look, I'll do it when I get back home on the desk, because he doesn't like to confuse things at once.
Sure.
He's quite taken by that.
Yeah.
He wants to talk to you more about it.
Me too.
And more, by the way. We found more that we didn't know about. We found some amazing stuff amongst the tessellations, didn't we, Adam?
Yeah, just hiding amongst tessellated lines.
Look, James, I think there is a major story that everyone's ignoring about the astronomy there, because every one of the engravings of all the sky heroes, and they are not gods, they're called sky heroes, every one of them points to an alignment, a constellation. In fact, everything around that region points above. And Graham was getting that. Graham was quite taken by that, and he's quite taken by the glyphs. I know he's already put up on his website, he's asked other people to comment about what they think too.
Sure.
So yeah, he thought that was an important part of the story, and he's mentioned it since he's come back, and I know he's going to write about it in his upcoming book. So everybody involved is coming from the same place. The beauty of it is, the people that he called in today, plus Graham and others, go in there with an open mind. The rest in our country, their minds were closed a long time ago. The officials have given up on this. But the ones who really know, the people you've spoken about and others, and many others, plus the original people, they all sense something. I think you made a very important point. There's a power of that place. We've sensed it many times. And when you go there with an open heart, you'll get something in return. And we do know above there's a sacred place for women, and I won't talk about where. Well, that's part of it too. And when you put it all together, it does make for a fascinating story. And it's much deeper and much more complex. And we're only a little of the way through there.
Sure. Yeah, I know Graham Hancock, he's in Indonesia still. Like, he's not exactly home yet. I know he's left Australia, but he's in transit, stopping off in a few places on the way home. But yeah, the Orion constellations there cross incredibly important to the Egyptians. Possibly the Pleiades as well. I think the Libra constellation as well, and another couple of possibilities as well. But like I say, you guys have a massive undertaking. Just for the audience that don't really understand, this star chart or star map is probably the biggest known in the world. It's like 600 meters wide.
It's daunting. Look, we're working on one rock platform, as you know. We're up to about 380, and we've still got, on that first platform, we've still got another 150, 200, and then the rock platform alongside's got another 300 or 400. We've spent days and days mapping it, according to the way you set it out, and we're getting there. We're going back, don't worry, the next time we go, I just mentioned it, we're pulling in some more people, and we're forcing them to spend a day on that rock platform again, because it gets very hot in the summer on the sandstone rock platform. Yes, it's a long and involved story, but we reckon there's at least 4,500 star markers within 3 to 4 k's of the glyphs.
Wow.
We feel it could be the largest star marker platform in the world. And yet, a long, long way to go. We know there are about, other academics have been there and walked away, and they've written about it, and they said there's at least 8 different types of star markers there. This is so complex. And they mapped this with such precision. Yeah, we definitely have seen Orion. Orion, strangely enough, is on a lot of the heroes too. There's something on his belt called Orion's belt, didn't she? Yeah. It goes right through the middle of quite a few of these engraved heroes, and it points to Orion also. So Orion is an important part of that story. And if I can close with something, every original tribe in the country, doesn't know where they come from, are all unique, with different languages, different mythologies, and different stories, but they share one thing. All of them talk about the seven sisters of Pleiades. I just went to the Pilbara, which is on the other side of the country from me, 5,000 k's away. And the first thing the elder spoke about when we spoke about a site was, oh, that's part of the Pleiades, a part of the Seven Sisters story. Why does that go around the whole of this country? Because there's a link. As the ladies tell us everywhere, as this lady told me again, don't forget, as on top, so below. Very much a Hermetic story, as Graham pointed out, and he said the links between the Hermetic story and what we're seeing are identical. So yeah, we've got to work on that. We've got a long way to go, but James, I can tell you the next time we get to that first platform, we will have finished it, and then we'll have the complete piece to work on.
Yeah.
In the next part we're doing.
Sure, beautiful, beautiful. Because, you know, as I said to you guys, the archaeoastronomy dating is rock solid. You know, you can if you can match it with the sky and the computer simulations, and you have it mapped out as it is on the ground and transferred into a digital image, you have something concrete, you have a date. You can archaeoastronomy dating is as some people like to think, is more accurate than anything. It's because of the precision of the clockwork mechanism of the sky. So, fingers crossed on that, guys. You get the effort and the work done. I know you need a lot of volunteers to go and do that, so I hope you still getting a lot of interest and a lot of effort. But I guess we wrap it at that, Stephen. I thank you for your time today. I thank you for getting up at 4 a.m. I thank you, Laird, as well, 2 p.m. in America, and Klaus, myself and Klaus get off easy, Patricia and you. We're in evening time, so. But, listen, we'll wrap it at that, and we'll get the show out pretty soon, and, thank everybody for their time today.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for being a part of this. We really appreciate your efforts and your help. It's been invaluable. Thank you.
No problem, brother. This is your host, James Swagger, signing off. Don't forget to check out the full MP3 archive at capricornmembers.com. You can subscribe there and follow all the links for the show on capricornradio.com.